Hi Floss Tube, it's Julie with Reflections Framing and Stitching. Back for my I don't have any idea what number video this is because I've thrown this together at the last minute and I didn't bother to go back and look. So fair warning, no show notes, no plan, just gonna wing it. I've had several people message me, call me out in their videos saying where's Julie, where's her video. So I thought maybe, oh, and thank you for missing me, by the way. That's very heartwarming to know that people miss me and the videos. So I thought I would just quickly, well, looking at the pile over here, maybe not so quickly, try and do a video, see if I can get through it without screwing up too much with no notes. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're an old subscriber, welcome back. I'm glad to have you. And I think I will go over mostly what some of my favorite things from market were. I can't possibly show you everything I brought back. We'd be here for hours and hours because I spent a lot of money and brought back a lot of beautiful things. I have not had time to play much. I haven't started anything new. In fact, it's just been in this last hour that I've pulled some of the charts and some of the floss and played with a little bit of fabric just to kind of give you an idea of what I might do or what the designer called for. So also fair warning, I have been a little bit under the weather this past week, so there may be a cough or two, and I've got my mug of water over here just in case. I babysat for Emma a week ago this past Thursday, and she had a cold at the time, or some sort of a upper respiratory virus, and in the process of babysitting for her, she was right up here in my face and sneeze snot all over my face. There was, no way to avoid it, and I knew right then I was going to be sick. And sure enough, Saturday evening, the evening of our market open house, I started getting a sore throat and lost my voice a little bit, and luckily not as bad as what I've had it the previous 2 times this year, but enough to I just kind of felt crappy. But I'm feeling better this week. Still have a little bit of a cough and a little bit of a tickle right down in here. So excuse me if I cough. I'll try not to. Let's see where to start. Market. For those of you that do not know, there is a cash and carry wholesale market held once a year in Nashville at the Embassy Suites. It's kind of the go-to if you're a shop, and we have gone every year since Marianne owned the shop, and we started adding in cross stitch. I think we have attended every year since then. I don't know how many years exactly, but I'm sure you've heard some of the other people talk about what the concept is, but I'll go over it briefly. The designers set up a shop in their room. The shop owners go from room to room shopping. It's cash and carry, so we bring the stuff home. It's a lot of fun. It's good to see other friends that you only see once a year. It's great to meet up with the designers, share ideas, kind of re-energizes you a little bit, and I gotta say, it's nice to see the models in person because they always look different, and things that I might not have purchased, I will purchase because I've seen it stitched up and know what it looks like. So it's a good time. It's exhausting. You're on your feet all day long. I did not make it to everyone's store this year. I need to do better. I don't know how to do it better, but I need to try, because I know I missed out on a lot of things. I missed out seeing new people and meeting new designers. Basically, I take pre-orders for my customers and I shop those pre-orders first. Then I go back and I shop for the shop. This year I had a ton of pre-orders. A lot of them were already set aside for me, but some of them weren't. So by the time we got all that done and started shopping for the shop, half of our shopping time was already gone. And then I was trying to talk to people about having trunk shows or doing a class, or and if you take time to talk, you're screwed. So I didn't make it everywhere, and I regret that. So I'll have to come up with a different plan for next year. I don't know if I can maybe send Doreen and Lori out on their own, go get the pre-orders, and I'll just start shopping for the shop. I don't know. I've got to come up with a better way of doing it so I get everywhere. Anyway, we had a great time. We arrived Thursday night late. We managed to get stuck behind a traffic accident in St. Louis, so we sat on the interstate there for about an hour. So it was probably 10 p.m. when we arrived at the Embassy Suites, and right behind us were Barb and Alma from Blackbird Designs. They had gotten delayed, I think they said also. Different accident, I think. So it was late when we got in. Usually I take a class or two on Friday. This year I opted not to do that. Doreen had to work remotely because she had the flu and used up all her leave time, so she had to work on Friday. So Lori and I decided to go out and do a little antiquing, which we did, and we were pretty disappointed. I hadn't gone out antiquing for 2 years, I think. And in that time, the shops had all changed from actual antiques to more decor that I can get at Hobby Lobby or, locally. So we were a little bit disappointed, and in fact, I didn't buy anything, which is unusual for me. I usually can find some little treasure of some sort that I want to bring home, but I didn't find anything. So probably I should have taken a class. Friday night the shopping gets started at, I think it's 6 to 9. So we hit it pretty hard. We came back to the room. We started adding up receipts and double checking, because invariably there are math mistakes on those receipts, or we'll get things that we didn't pay for, or we didn't get things that we did pay for. So you always need to sort through and go through everything. And it was probably 1 a.m. before we got to bed Friday night, and we were up by 6 so we could be down to breakfast and ready to go at 9. Shopped all day on Saturday. We were up until 1 again going through all the receipts, and Sunday was spent kind of going back to those places that we had problems, or picking up last minute items. And then we usually try and hit the road about between 1 and 2. We have to be out of our room at 1, and it's a 13-14 hour drive for us, which we don't do all in one shot on the way home. But we do like to get to this side of St. Louis before we stop for the night. So 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and it's time for us to go. That's my phone. Just ignore it. The trip home was uneventful. We didn't run into any bad weather. I got home about, 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday. And I started in immediately getting everything put into the computer, which I continued to do the entire week. It took me that long. So market open house was great. We had a huge turnout for it, which is always nice to see. And that's about it for the quick market report, except for I did bring something special home with me that I'll tell you about a little bit later. But I did not find any. Usually there's one chart, one design, one something that I stand in front of drooling, literally. But this year I didn't. I either missed it because I didn't get there, or it just wasn't there this year. But so I didn't really bring anything back specifically for me. There are things that I do like. There are things I will probably add to my stash. But as far as that one special piece, well, there is a special piece, but it's not something you could have or buy. Yeah, I didn't find it. So anyway, that's my market report. I will shut up now. For those of you interested, Dan's thumb is healing. It's still very tender. He curses a lot when he accidentally bumps it. But it is healing, and he is starting to use it a little bit. So this fingernail is starting to kind of fall off a little bit on the end. But it's looking good. He's doing well. And that's about all I know as far as life events. Abby got her wedding photos back, so at some point I'll figure out how to add some to the back end of a video and just show you a couple. I'm not going to bore you with all 2,000 pictures, but I'll pick a couple of my favorites just so you can see it if you want, and I'll put it at the end. So if you don't want to see it, you don't have to. And with that, I think I will start to show you a few of my favorite things. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. I'm going to start with, and only because Christine from Stitch All the Things told you about her dislike of rabbits and why she dislikes rabbits. I also have a problem with rabbits eating my car. They have done it 3 times. Been a couple years since the last time they did it, but even the garage people didn't. They kept telling us, "Oh, it's mice," and we kept saying, "No, it's rabbits." The last time the rabbits ate the car, they had to tow it in, and when they took the whatever it is they had to take off underneath, it was up on the lift, and they had to take it down, take parts out in order to get to what was wrong. The rabbit actually hopped out of the car, so it stayed inside the car while they put it up on the tow truck, while they drove it to the shop, while they put it up on the lift. It hopped out, and they took a video, so they apologized for not believing us. But anyway, so I'm not really fond of the real live rabbits, but the stitched ones are cute. And one of the things that I really liked this year, and I will try and keep the glare off of it, was the sweet pea from La Di Da. Don't know why, but I think that's stinking cute. And I intend to stitch this one up, and I've already got one of our gals that comes to stitch twice a week, has said she will attempt to do the finishing on this, because that's beyond my skill. I don't think I can do that one. So anyway, that's one of my favorite things. This one is also one of my very favorites. It's not selling really well here in the shop, and I'm not sure why. Summer in Baltimore by With Thy Needle and Thread, Brenda Gervais. I love it, but I'm apparently the only one here that does. And I did not get a chance to pull any of the flosses. It calls for 40 count parchment linen by weeks. I probably will not do it on 40 count parchment. I'll have to pull the fibers and see what I want to do it on, but it won't be the parchment probably. Anyway, I think I've ordered it gets put on an oval paper mache box, and I think I've ordered a couple of those in. Or I started to and I got interrupted. I can't remember which. But anyway, that's one of my favorites. Mani di Donna. I think that's how you say it. The Eunice Tanqueral. I'm probably fracturing that one. Sampler. The picture on here, I've seen better pictures. I did not get a chance to go in and see it in person, but I can just tell from this that I'm going to have to stitch this. I love the little motif right here. Even if you just stitched that, it would be pretty. But look at all these cool animals. I don't know if those are lions or bobcats or I don't know, but they're pretty cool. This was released to, I think, the Attic, and they had an exclusive for like 3 months or something. So I'm really glad that I was able to get this one, because I think it's going to be beautiful stitched up. Rovaris, not sure how it's pronounced. Sold really well in the shop, and I've had to place another order from her. This one is one of my favorites. She doesn't always name her charts. Sometimes they just have a number. This one is called Snow, though, and I think it's just beautiful. Love the blue. Looks wintry. Really like that one. My reorder hasn't come in, or I'd show you a lot more than these three. This one is called 1776. Great 4th of July one. And it includes, you can't see it, and it's sealed. But there's a little, it looks plain here, but it's actually a little flag button. And then there's another star. And she's included all those things. Like this one has the trim and the jingle bells and a snowflake charm you can just see peeking out here. Which I think it's nice those are included, because they might be a little difficult since she is not from the U.S. It might be harder to get those items. This one is called Noel. And you can see in the picture this scissor fob. I like to decorate my scissors, and so I bought a few of these to bring home, and apparently I must be the only one that likes them, because they haven't sold either. But I think they're stinking cute. And they came in several colors, so I got them in several colors. This one comes with some charms. As you can see down here, it looks like it's a Christmas tree and a snowflake. So those have been really popular. And then, let's see. Plum Street is always popular, but one of my favorites is the Milk and Cream Company. I love that cow. I mean, who wouldn't love that cow? She's adorable. I love the barn. The well-built barn, I can tell from the picture. And, yeah, gonna have to stitch that one. Another la-di-da is Love Abide, and the picture does not do this one justice. You would have had to see it in person. This is one of those that I would not have bought just from the picture. Would not have. But seeing the model, and I'm hoping, I'm having a la-di-da trunk show in May, so I'm hoping she sends this model with, so that people can see that. It's really pretty. A new to me designer, maybe not new to you guys, but new to me was Samplings of Memories, and she had this this cute chart called Christmas Bake. It says, I want to bake stuff, watch Christmas movies, and stitch all day. I probably am going to change Christmas to Hallmark movies because, let's face it, usually the Christmas movies are Hallmark, and I can spend all day Saturday and Sunday watching them over and over and over, much to Dan's dismay, although sometimes he does enjoy them. There is one, it's an older one, you might, if you watch them, that's Dan's favorite, and it was about a girl, I can't remember the actress's name, but she was the girlfriend of a mobster. She witnessed something, so they put her into kind of witness protection, and she goes home for Christmas with an FBI agent, and of course, you know, they end up together in the end, but that's Dan's favorite Hallmark Christmas movie of all time. And he probably won't appreciate that I shared that with you, but he's not here to stop me. So anyway, I thought this was really cute. It should stitch up quickly. It's calls for 36 count Old Town blend, and it uses DMC thread. This was not at, yes, this was at Market. Yes, it was. It's Chatelaine. It's called Mini Mandala Mystery 03 from 2008, I believe. Kind of reminds me of the Medieval Town Mandala, only in terracottas and rusts and bricks. When I thought it was gorgeous, so I brought that one home. I need to start working on ordering some of the beads and threads. Thankfully, it doesn't use a whole lot of Rainbow Gallery. I don't carry that here, and I find it difficult to get it. But the other things I should be fine with. But I think it's pretty, and I want to start one this year. And I use the word "start" loosely because we all know I won't probably finish anytime soon, but I do want to start one. Blackberry Lane Designs. I have a trunk show set up for her in, I think, July. I find Marie's work to be amazing. Her use of colors and shading, and it's just, you have to see him in person to really appreciate him. But the pictures are gorgeous also. But Jolly Jingle, I think this little old elf is just adorable. And she shows him 3 different ways. She shows with all the bells and whistles. I don't know if you can tell in the picture, but this one, his beard is fuzzy, and he's got the memory thread glasses on. There's buttons on it. And then this one, same picture, only it's all just using DMC. There's no little button or anything, so it's maybe a little less intimidating for people. And then this one, she shows it stitched over 1. And I haven't decided which way I want to do it yet. I'm kind of leaning towards the over 1 without the bells and whistles, although I may do the glasses on him because I think the glasses are cute. And he uses 32 count Zephyr from Picture This Plus. So I just think he's adorable. Okay, those of you who know me well know that I don't like vegetables. They taste like dirt. I don't touch them with a 10-foot pole. I never have. I never will. I know I should. Not going to happen. But I thought this chart, especially if you're a gardener, I thought this chart was really pretty. It's Garden Vegetables from Kathy Barrick. And it gives the different vegetables, and then how long it takes to germinate, the depth that you need to plant the seeds at, and the time it takes to reach maturity, and what month to plant it in, which I think is pretty cool. So I would actually stitch this just because I think it's that cool a chart. Plus, I love these tall ladies. I've always wanted to be tall, and I'm not. I'm short and fat, so I would love to be a tall lady. It's stitched on 40 count doubloon from Picture This Plus. Calls for needlepoint silk, but she gives the DMC conversion. And it was really pretty stitched up also. Leeds House Sampler, Rosewood Manor. This almost was the piece that I would stand and drool in front of. It was beautiful in person, don't get me wrong. It just wasn't I'm going to stand here and stare at you for 3 hours beautiful. I do love it. I might even stitch it or start it. It calls for sulky, which I have not personally used before. They tell me that sulky is supposed to be equivalent to 2 strands of DMC. I have seen some people that have tried it and have said it's not quite the equivalent of 2 strands, but I'm wondering if it would work well. On 36 count, I always think 1 strand is not enough and 2 strands is too many. So I'm wondering if a person used the sulky on 36 count, if it would be just right, kind of like, Goldilocks and the 3 bears. This one's too tight. This one's too loose. This one's just right. So I may try that, just to try the sulky. All right, now we're getting down to, I'll show these next. Just a couple little doodads that I picked up. Scissor Hive from Lady Dot. It's got this nice little wood beehive and a pair of scissors. I'm a sucker for scissors. What can I say? I thought they were cute. I need to get a drink before I cough. Just a minute. Sorry. And then Sampling of Memories had these cute little thread keeps with different animals on them, and I picked up, I don't know, a pig and a cow and a couple roosters and a chicken, but I think those are adorable. So now we're getting down to the things that I pulled and sort of kind of played with a little bit, except for this one. I was going to play with it, and then I looked at the thread list and decided I didn't have enough time, but this one has been very, very popular in the shop. In fact, this is my last copy, and I think I ordered 10, which is unusual for me. Indigo Lane with the needle and thread. It calls for 36 count summer khaki, which is laying out here somewhere. 36 count summer khaki. Kind of has a green tinge to it, which is not going to show up in this video. When I was helping a customer with this, and when I had all the threads pulled, we chose something other than this, and I can't remember what it was, but it was more of a kind of a gray-brown color. I almost want to say it was vintage. Oh yeah, now I'm drawing a blank. It was a Lakeside Linens. It'll come to me eventually, but I can't think of it right now. Navy bean. Vintage navy bean. And we really like the colors on that. So that might be an option if you don't like the summer khaki, but you do like the chart. Let's see. One of my personal favorites, and it is not, only brought one back. I still have one because samplers are just a tough sell. Esther Edison from Chessie and Me. I thought it was probably the prettiest sampler at market as far as that I saw anyway. I appreciate samplers. I don't always think that they're the prettiest thing in the world. I thought this one was very pretty. I pulled the fabric or the threads. It calls for Lakeside Linens vintage exemplar. I don't know what count it calls for. I don't see it right off the bat. But anyway, the interesting thing about this one is, and you're not going to be able to see it, but I think someone else has already talked about it, but it has a little man that you can hardly see over here, and a little dog, and it says "Poor Blind Man," which is kind of unusual, I think. But anyway, it calls to be stitched on vintage exemplar, which looks like this. And again, color's not going to show up real well. It's kind of golden brown. I just don't know how I can get a good, it's just not going to show. But I pulled the floss and I just felt it was too much golden brown for me. In this, it doesn't look bad, but in person, this is golden brown, this is golden brown, this is kind of golden. I just, kind of too much golden for my liking. You guys might just love it. So I was looking for some different options. I thought the summer khaki looked good. It's, you know, not as gold. So it would be a possibility if, like me, you didn't like the gold. But I was still looking for something else, so I kept digging around. And what I found was vintage pear from Lakeside Linens. Only it's not vintage pear that came straight out of the bag. I had taken a piece of vintage pear home and dyed it with some walnut crystals. And then it didn't work out for the piece that I was thinking about, so I brought it back to the shop in case someone else would like it. And so first I'll show you just vintage pear. It is, this particular batch was very, very green. And again, it's not going to show, at least on my screen, it is not showing green. I'm talking it's pea green. Which isn't necessarily bad, it's just not what I'm looking for. This piece is the piece that's dyed with the walnut crystals. And I kind of like these colors on this piece. Which is going to be hard to show you. Oh, hang on a minute. I'll fold it up a little more. There. I really kind of like them on this because it's not golden. It's still green, but it's got a lot of brown in it. So I really think that piece would be very pretty on here. One last time. Lots of pretty color palette. Lots of pretty colors in this palette. Can you tell I'm kind of tired? Been putting in a lot of hours at the shop. So I was here yesterday from, I don't know, 10 to 5 stretching cross stitch. I'm still way behind. Way behind. So that's Esther. Again, one of my favorites. Another one of my, and it seems to be a trend, my favorites are the ones that are not selling this year. I don't know why. The Scarlet House, Anna Grader. the picture, again, does not do it justice. That fabric is not white. That is Tin Roof from Weeks Dye Works. So it bears no resemblance to the picture whatsoever. I happen to have some Tin Roof, and I will show it to you. And I think this would be just fine on there. But just in case you didn't want to do that, it calls for 36 count. Of course, you don't have to do it on that. But if you don't like Tin Roof, which is kind of a greeny color, I pulled out some Confederate Gray, which I think also looks good. I think that's pretty. But anyway, little Anna is one of my favorites from this year. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, Anna is Tanya's maternal grandmother. So her actual full name was, get this, Frederica Anna Amelia Christina Grader Schick. I think it's Schick, S-C-H-I-C-K. Wow, now that's a name. Frederica Anna Amelia Christina Grader Schick. How would you like to have to write that on your checks every time you wrote one, or contracts or whatever? You'd be writing forever. Okay, so, and yet another one that I think is really pretty, that is not necessarily selling the best here in the shop, is the Comfort Lighthouse from Carriage House Samplings. Look at that mermaid. Look at her hair. That's so cute. Little crab, some fishies, bigger crab, nice boat. Who doesn't love a lighthouse? It calls for Wren, and it gives both DMC and MPI. So I pulled the DMC because I figure most of you will probably stitch it with DMC. And not my favorite. Love the colors, not so much the color of the fabric. So I picked a couple other things that I liked a little bit better. Vintage Flagstone from Lakeside Linens. It's kind of a browny gray color, and I think everything will show up well on it. So that's one option I found that I liked. The other option is Dapple, and I don't know that every batch of Dapple will work. It just happens that I think this particular dye lot, because it's got more brown in it than the previous dye lot had more blue tones to it, and I think you might lose one of the grays, but I think this particular dye lot would work well. Pretty colors. So that is everything that I pulled out this time. to show you. I mean, I could have pulled a ton of other things, but we'd be here forever. I'm already at 45 minutes, and I have a couple more things to show you, not necessarily charts or anything, but I have jumped, oh dear, my pile just fell on the floor. Anyway, I have jumped on the project bag bandwagon, even though I cannot sew a straight line to save my soul. So, I've only managed to get 3 done. I have 5 more cut, but they've been cut for 3 weeks now. I don't know when I'll get to the sewing part of them, if ever. But this is my project bag. I like the clear fronts on my project bags, so I can see what's in them. It was fabric I had in my stash. Got some threads on them. Now, I had a gal look at it who's an actual seamstress, and she says that they're not as bad as what I feel they are. But I look at it, and of course I see all the flaws, and Rag's hair. It's not horrible, it's just not as good as what I would like. But she says I'm being too hard on myself. So anyway, I'm hoping to get a few more of those done here sometime in the near future. Stitching has been scarce. I have been putting in 12-hour days here at the shop, so if I get an hour in a night, I'm doing good. And then half the time I have to pluck that out because I was too tired and I made mistakes. But anyway, I've been working on the I'm looking at it and I still can't tell you what it is. Farmhouse Christmas, Little House Needleworks. And I know I had told you guys I was going to do them individually. And then I saw that little sneak peek that showed them all done with the little quilt block in the middle. And I changed my mind because I really liked how that looked. So I am doing it all on one on 36 count. I'm using raw natural. I have changed a few things to suit my own tastes. I changed the bamboo to whitewash, Weeks whitewash, because it shows up a little better on the raw natural. And my sheep, I decided sheep should not be bright white, so I changed them to grits, so they have a little bit of dirt, but they're not, I've been rolling around in the mud for 2 weeks, kind of dirt, just a little bit of dirt. I am not overly fond of the Brandied Pears color, so I'm still using it here and there, but I've changed some of it to Flatfish. And then I designed my own border because I don't want to say I didn't like the free border that was designed. I just preferred, I took the border that I could see around the middle block and decided I would rather have it around the outside edge rather than have 2 different kind of borders going on. So, or basically 3, since every block has a border around it. So I just kind of took what I could see in that little picture and designed my own border. So, and as you can, okay, I'm just going to show it to you. So there's what I've done so far. And as you can see over here, I have not put the person in yet because I'm still trying to decide what to do. To me, it looks like that person is wearing an English riding habit, you know, the red coat, the white pants, the tall boots. I used to have horses, but I ride Western, and so I would like to make it more like what I would wear, which I would not be wearing the white pants and the tall boots. And so I haven't decided what to do about the person yet. And I changed the horse color. Oh, I changed the green weeping willow. I'm using English ivy, I think. Yeah, I think I'm using English ivy. So I'm just kind of winging it as I go and deciding what I want to do. I added a second little bird over here sitting on the fence because I thought it needed a little bit of red up top. I put a red, I don't know if you can see it, a red halter on the horse, and I have a bay rather than I can't remember what color it was. I think it was the darker, I don't know. Oh, I think it was actually supposed to be blackbird, but I wanted a bay rather than a black horse. So stay tuned to find out what I do with that person, because I don't know yet. But I like how it's coming out. I like my border. And I'm trying to keep up. Trying desperately to keep up. But it's been hard. So nothing else has been stitched on. And now we are down to what did Julie actually buy at the show for herself. Like I said, normally there's one chart that I find to be absolutely stunning. That didn't happen this time. But I did feed my little scissor habit a little bit, and I picked up the mother of pearl Sajou scissors, in which this is not going to do them justice, but they are gorgeous in person. Have the little tassel on them. Look at that. They have a little cross right in here. There's a cross. They're very lightweight, very sharp, have a nice feel to them. I love them. So I bought those, and then that wasn't enough. I had to buy another pair. I bought a pair of matte gold Dovos that, if you've never felt Dovos, it's like amazing. But they're pretty gold. They're plain. They're not real fancy or anything, but they just feel wonderful. Very sharp. Very, very sharp. Do not want to put those in with your stitching because they will put a hole right through it. Ask me how I know. You can probably guess. The only chart that I actually have in my possession, it was freebie. And that's Kathy from Hands On Designs, her Farm Fresh freebie with the cute little pins. That is the only chart that I have currently in my possession from market. Doesn't mean those other ones that I showed you aren't coming home eventually, but right now this is the only one that I have in my hot little hands. And lastly, I have to tell you a story. 3 years ago at market, I went into one of the shops. I used that shops. Went into one of the rooms. The vendor sells antique. I went in to look at the little antique sewing sets, like the little piano-shaped sewing that you open it up and there's all these little scissors and sewing tools and stuff inside. She had a whole case full of those things. Very expensive, very much out of my price range. But love to look at them. So I went in just to look, and there's also antique samplers in there of all varying sizes and price ranges. But like I said before, while I appreciate antique samplers, very few of them call out to me and say, "Oh, hey, take me home." But I was looking around and I happened to spy this one sampler. And what I noticed immediately was it had a griffin right in the middle of it. And I thought, well, that is cool. And then I saw it said Nottingham on it, which, cool, Nottingham. Robin Hood, he was from Nottingham. And then the colors, I saw the colors. And slowly the little details on this sampler started catching my eye. And I think I stood there looking at that sampler for, I don't know, an hour at least, the first time. I went back to that room and stared at the sampler for, I think, at least another 2 times, and I stood there for at least a half an hour the other 2 times that I stood there. Totally fell in love with it, but it was way out of my price range. Way out of my price range. So far out that there was no way I would ever even think about buying it. It was that expensive. So I even went out and I called Dan on the cell phone. I said, "Dan, I've fallen in love with this antique sampler. Can I have it?" And of course his first response was, "Sure." And then he said, "Well, how much is it?" So I told him, and I'm not going to tell you how much it was at that point. I'm not even going to tell you how much I paid for it. But when he heard the price, he's like, "Okay, so is this something that you're going to reproduce and sell?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know." And he said, "Well, could you make the money back if you reproduced it and sold it?" And I said, "Probably not." He said, "Well, I'm not going to tell you no, but you think about it carefully before you make your decision." So I did. I thought about it, and there was just no way I could justify the expense, and we left, and my little heart was hurting because we left it behind. So the next year I went back to market, and the same vendor was there, and I went in to see if that sampler was still there. This would have been last year, and it was. And she recognized me from, I think she thought I was probably some sort of a creep after this, going in the room so many times the last time and just standing there and staring. So she recognized me, and she informed me that they had lowered the price on that particular sampler. It was still not at a price that I was willing to pay. I had Abby's wedding coming up, and I knew I shouldn't spend the money. But I stood there and I looked at her, and I was still in love with her. And lady tried to talk. Oh, she'd take payments. She'd take layaway. She'd, this, that, and the other thing. And I was tempted. I was really, really tempted. But in the end, again, after 3 or 4, I think I visited her 4 times that year. I walked away, and the gal had told me that she didn't know if they would be. They were trying to pare down their collection and not do so much traveling. So she couldn't tell me that she was going to be at market this year. And I had to be okay with that. If it was meant to be, they'd be there. If it wasn't meant to be, they wouldn't. And who knew if I would even be able to afford it this year. So I did get their website, and I did visit her online several times over the past 12 months, and she was always still available for sale. But when the list came out of the vendors for market, this particular place was not on the list. And it did not show up on their website as someplace they would be going. So I went to market thinking it wouldn't be there, and I had missed my shot. And that's life, as Dan always says, you snooze, you lose. I knew that was a possibility. But as we were traveling, Lori and Doreen asked who all was going to be there, so I went online and I started reading off the names, and I got down towards the bottom, and lo and behold, there was that vendor. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to be there. And Lori and Doreen were like, who's going to be there? And I said, my sampler people, they're going to be there. Well, I thought you said they weren't going to be there. And I'm like, well, they're there. They're on the list. So then I didn't know how to feel. I'd kind of made peace with the fact that they weren't going to be there, and I wasn't going to be bringing the sampler home. Excuse me, tickle. So I was kind of torn because I'd come to grips with it. Wasn't meant to be. Now here they were. Would they have brought that sampler? I don't know. So I avoided going until Sunday. And I don't know if I was hoping that she wouldn't be there or that she would be there. I don't know. But I waited until Sunday, and I walked in, and the couple that have the store were busy with someone else. So I walked around the room, and there she was, hanging on the wall. So I stood there, I looked at the price. It was still the same price as last year. And I stood there for a while, and finally the lady says, do you need any help? And I said, oh, no, I'm just visiting my sampler. And she said, oh, that's right. You're the one that's in love with that sampler. And I said, yeah. And so she walked over and she says, is she going home with you this year? And I said, well, I see the price is still the same as last year. And she said, yeah. And I said, I have this amount of money in cash. And she said, oh, honey, I can't go that low. And I said, well, that's what I have in cash. So probably she won't come home with me this year. So she wandered back over to help the other gal that was in the room, and I just continued to stare and look at the details, and eventually the gal came over again, and she said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll come down $100. And I said, well, I appreciate that, but I still only have this amount of money. I said, I've been saving for 3 years. This is what I have. If I said, you've been carting her around for at least 3 years. I don't know how long she had been carted around prior to that. I said, so I guess I can just take my chances that she'll be here again and that you'll be here again next year, and try and save up some more money. And about that time, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Doreen asking me to go to one of the other rooms and pick something up that someone had just emailed her about. So I turned to the lady and I thanked her for, letting me stare at her sampler, and I said, I've got to go and pick up something before we head out of town. And I said, I hope to see you next year. And she said, fine. She says, you can have it for that price. So I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So I start digging out my cash and counting it out for her, and she's writing up the ticket, and she sends her husband over to go take it off the wall. And the other gal that was in there was, and her name escapes me right now, the designer for My Lady's Needle. And she walks over, and she says, oh, that's a nice one. And she says, are you going to reproduce it? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, it's been hanging here for 3 years, and none of you sampler reproduction people have bought her, which kind of makes me think that maybe she's not something people would be interested in. And she said, well, that's not necessarily true. And by this time they had her wrapped up, and not really wrapped up, but in a bag of bubble wrap, so easy to get out. And she says, let me look at it again. So I pulled it out, and she says, the first thing that I look at when I'm looking at an antique sampler and considering it is I look to see if it has an unusual border. And she says, yours doesn't have an unusual border. And she says, the second thing, it's just a strawberry border. And she says, the second thing that I look at is, does it have an unusual verse? And she says, your verse isn't really unusual. So she said, then the third thing I look at is, does it have any unusual motifs? And she says, yours has quite a few unusual motifs. And I'm like, oh, okay. Whew. Because there for a while I was thinking, oh boy, Julie, you really got took. So she starts pointing out of course, the first thing is the griffin, which was the first thing that caught my eye. And then some of the other little motifs. And she says, so you really, you have a special, very special sampler. And I said, well, then why hasn't anyone else, bought her? And she said, well, it just may not have been the right time for them. They may have had other things on their plate or that they were designing, and it just wasn't the right time. I said, okay. And she says, this would really make a very good reproduction. It would be very pretty. So I think that's probably what I will do is try and reproduce it. And hopefully some of you out there would enjoy stitching it. I don't know when I'll get to it, hopefully sooner rather than later. But anyway, that's my story. She came home with me. I'm thrilled to death. Dan was he was rather underwhelmed. But everyone that I've shown it to here has been really, really happy for me and thinks it's beautiful and has said that they would buy the chart if I do reproduce it. So I think without further ado, since I'm well over an hour now, is show it to you and give you a little bit of the history that I know on it. There's going to be glare because it is, I'm going to shut this light off. There. So there will be glare from the camera, from the lights up above. I don't know if I can get a better picture of it or not. But anyway, the little girl that stitched this finished it when she was 10 years old, and she finished it in the year 1839. She passed away in May of 1840. And I, have no idea how old she would have been when she started it, but I'm going to bring it in so you can kind of see that griffin right there in the middle. That's what first caught my eye. And then down here is where it says Nottingham. It's got two little windmills. The colors are really pretty. It has some significant water damage over on this side. This is blue, you can't really tell. Still very brilliant. I mean, the blue has kept its color. The pink is somewhat faded, especially, or no, the water damage is on this side. So the pink is faded and kind of run over here, but over here it's pretty good. Beautiful flower in the middle. There's a couple of peacocks in here, a couple of dogs here and here. There's birds scattered throughout. There's a building. You can't really see it too well in this. The glare is just terrible, which I knew it would be. But anyway, maybe I'll try and show it to you again when I take it apart to reproduce it, because I'll have to take it out of the frame. I'm thinking, ooh, there's a somewhat better look at it. So her name is Anne, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, Brough, B-R-O-U-G-H. Age 10 in the year of our Lord, 1839 is how she signed it. The saying at the bottom is, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. But I'm thinking, because I kind of like the way it looks on the front, and I know that the colors on the back will be more like the original. So I'm thinking of doing two colorways. So those that are like me and like the more muted colors can do that, and those that are purists can stitch it the way it would probably look more when Anne stitched it. Hang on just a second. I have a little bit of information that the gal gave me. About some of the motifs in the sampler. Apparently, I thought it was a gate, but apparently this down here, let me see if I can hold it. How did I have that? This down here looked like a gate to me. Apparently, that is not a gate. It is the burnt out shell. They're thinking it's the burnt out shell of the ducal palace built by the Duke of Newcastle in 1673. Anne would have known this as a burnt out shell. It was burned by rioters in 1831 in protest at the Duke's opposition to parliamentary reform, and was restored in the 1870s as the museum and art gallery it is today. The two houses flanking the castle are typical of Georgian houses still standing in the streets in the vicinity of the castle. The griffin, I think, is the one now adorning the modern county hall when it was moved from the old Shire Hall in the Lace Market. Yeah, that's the griffin. The windmills are representative of the area of, I don't know how to say it. It's Sneinton, Sneinton, where Anne lived. There were many mills around the area, but only one still exists, Green's Mill. The building at the top center, that's that one you can't see very well, looks suspiciously like the neoclassical entrance to the General Cemetery, which was built in the mid-1830s. Sadly ironic, as Anne was buried there in May 1840. So we have a little history on it, and actually this information came from a descendant of Anne's family. Obviously not Anne, since she was 11 when she passed away. But anyway, that is my exciting purchase. I am, like I said, I'm thrilled to death that I got to bring her home this year. And I hope you enjoyed seeing her and hearing about her. And hopefully I didn't bore you too much. So it's, I think this is the longest video I've ever done. Kind of scattered. I'm sorry. I warned you ahead of time. But I think I'm going to call it quits. I'm going to head home. I've got some retreat stuff I've got to work on tonight. I want to do a little bit of stitching, and then I'll have to come in early tomorrow and clean up this mess, because I'm not going to do it tonight. But I got stitchers coming tomorrow, so I've got to get it all cleaned up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for missing me, those of you that did. Dan has finished his Martha Washington cabinet, so I think next time I'll try and have him on to show you his final project. And he's finally started stitching again since the saw incident, so he's back to work on his map from Hawk Run Hollow, so he can show you that. Don't know when I'll get to it. I've got to get the rest of retreat projects done, and I've got to get caught up on framing here. So hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later, but I'm not going to make any promises. Anyway, good to see you all. I have been watching. I have not been commenting. I am sorry. But as I'm pinning, I'm watching, so keep putting out those videos so I have something to watch while I'm sitting here. And I will see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye.